evening, Papua New Guinea, and welcome to a brand new episode of Business PNG. Now, tonight on the show, we're here at the second Papua New Guinean Petroleum and Energy Summit right here in Port Moresby, as we speak to industry stakeholders from Exxon, Mobil, and Oil Search, as they discuss with us updates from the industry, as well as the recent devastating earthquake and aftershock up in the Highlands region. Good evening, Mr. Botten. Thank you for your time.
Oh, good to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what you presented upstairs at the second Papua New Guinea Petroleum and Energy Summit?
Well, it was focusing on two things. I mean, firstly, what I think to be a really exciting future for the development of oil and gas business and industry in this country, but also recognising we have to address some of the sensitivities of communities and government around the development of locally based industries, new power options for the country, and industries that are going to employ a lot of Papua New Guineans and diversify the economy. And I think any new gas development in Papua New Guinea has got to have those prerequisites. And we're certainly, as a company, doing what we can to prove up enough gas in various fields such that we can drive the domestic market industry growth. We're also playing a role with Kumul Petroleum and partnering with Kumul Petroleum on a number of power projects. The extra new power station for Port Moresby, and we're also looking at other things such as small-scale LNG and others which can be used as a very good energy fuel for industry development in this country. It's an absolutely important part.
Can you give us an update about what is happening in the extractive industry sector right now, particularly in oil?
Well, I think the oil and gas sector got knocked around heavily by lower oil prices. I think Dr. Fesharaki said today that he thought oil prices in the $60 should be sustainable, and you have to run your business on that sort of pricing structure. Luckily enough, Papua New Guinea is a low-cost producer in a world context, and certainly our production, whether it be oil or LNG, is actually very competitive at that sort of price. So there's a lot of moving parts in that, but clearly we think the prerequisites in Papua New Guinea with the quality of resource, the reputation the country now has for successful development, it bodes very well for future development. But as I say, those future developments have got to have an element of domestic market development, and employing as many Papua New Guineans as possible, and demonstrating to the community that they're getting fair value for the country's resources. So
tell us, how has the earthquake affected operations in the earthquake-affected areas, specifically for Oil Search?
Well, of course, we and our operations were right in the middle of the earthquake zone. We had some 24 work sites, whether it be seismic or drilling pads, as well as our production operations. Thank goodness, I think we were very, very lucky not to have any serious injuries during the earthquake and the subsequent aftershocks. We were very, very lucky. Ironically enough, the production facilities haven't been damaged that much. Certainly at Gobi, we expect production to return later this week. Kutubu in a couple of weeks' time, a little bit more damage in Agogo and Moran, but primarily from landslips covering flow lines, etc. But so we were impacted in terms of production, and I think the biggest impact, frankly, was in our camps, where something like certainly around 25 to 30% of our camp beds got severely damaged, and we had to send a lot of our people home. About 600 people got sent home because we could no longer accommodate them. Now that's getting better now. We're getting more beds and more and a greater ability to bring people back. But obviously that impacted initially our ability to help the relief efforts, because we actually needed people to live and have a safe and environment for them to come back at night and actually live properly. So that was a focus initially.
So how has Oil Search contributed or helped out with earthquake relief efforts?
Well, obviously, Morro Base, Morro Airstrip is right in the middle of the earthquake zone, and it was one of the few points that were still open for relief to come into the provinces, Southern Highlands, Hela and Western. And we used, through coordinating through the national government and the national disaster committees, the relief supplies to go in tomorrow, and then distribute those relief supplies out using our helicopters and those of our partners to get urgent relief material supplies, food, water, into the villages as soon as we could. I think we've visited, as of Friday night, something around 120 villages. We've touched around 100,000 people. We've also provided medical support and treated some close to 500 patients. We've done a number of medevacs for some seriously injured people. So our logistics base at Moro has been, I suppose, a locus for relief efforts to go into the region, and we've been getting that relief material out as quickly as possible into the various affected villages and help medical centres both in Hela and Southern Highlands.
There has been concerns raised on social media specifically, basically fearmongers, stating that the earthquakes were caused by oil and gas companies, namely Exxon Mobil, Oil Search. Can you basically address these concerns?
Look, I can understand some of the superstitions and some of the concerns that people would have out there, but they are absolutely groundless. The reality of Papua New Guinea is that it lies on what's called the Pacific Rim of Fire, and all around the Pacific there's these lines of tectonic plates or pieces of the earth, this crust that come together, and that occasionally causes earthquakes. Now, there have been a number of smaller earthquakes in our regions in the Highlands before, but the last big earthquake was almost 100 years ago. It was 1922. So many people had no idea that these sorts of things were possible, and so when it does happen, people quite legitimately ask questions. But I think there's very strong, in fact, absolutely non-controversial scientific evidence to say that this is a normal part of living where we live. And when you get volcanoes and earthquakes in Kokopo and other places very regularly, people get used to it, so they know. But there is no tie at all from our operations and our activities to the earthquake.
Is there anything else you would like to add, Mr. Botten?
No, it's just been a really good process of partnership, and as the relief effort now changes from one of urgent delivery of supplies and medical support, it's now very much moving towards reconstruction and what people need to rebuild their lives. And that's something that I'm pleased to say many of the larger organisations such as the UN, a number of the large NGOs are now playing a role through the disaster coordination committees for government to actually help and take up the load. So I think that's a very positive outcome, both in terms of the villages, but also in terms of long-term support for the reconstruction process in the country.
I'm Leanne Jorari in Lorengau, and you're watching Business PNG. We now have Mr. Andrew Berry, the Managing Director of Exxon Mobil. Mr. Berry, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. It's great to be here with you today.
So tell us a little bit about your presentation, what you discussed, what was discussed upstairs at the second Petroleum and Energy Summit.
And we're really excited by the presentations that have been happening this morning. I think that firstly I'd say that clearly there's a little bit of a sombre note to the presentations associated with the earthquake that has happened, and we from Exxon Mobil, PNG and all of our family would like to send our condolences to those that have been impacted. So I think that has been certainly one element of the material today, to talk about the impact on the communities and then the repair work that's going on. But outside of that, we're also hearing a lot of excitement about the growth opportunities that are here in Papua New Guinea, and certainly Exxon Mobil is going to be a significant partner to those.
In terms of earthquake relief efforts, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill did make special mention to Exxon Mobil and Oil Search about the relief efforts. Tell us a little bit about what Exxon Mobil contributed.
Yeah, certainly. So it's been a very saddening and shocking event for us. and impacted, not just directly the people that work for us, but also in the communities. And so it has been very, very hard for everybody involved. Very early on, the corporation, Exxon Mobil Corporation, has donated close to 3.5 million kina directly to aid agencies to assist. And then the other areas we're helping out with as well characterise in-kind support. So we've been out there in the communities, firstly understanding the impacts that are seen and where the worst impacts are, and then helping to purchase food, to transport those food, medical supplies, and other things that we'll be getting directly to the community. And then thirdly, we're also working with the government on looking to increase the amount of money that we have put forward for infrastructure. And so in 2018, we're looking to increase that up to 75 million kina to assist in recovery efforts.
How has ExxonMobil's operations been affected by the recent devastating earthquakes?
Yeah, so currently our operations are shut in or they're off at the moment, and that has happened since the earthquake. Very, very importantly, Leanne, is that the operation shut down safely and really as they were designed to shut down in an event like this. Our personnel on site, there was no one significantly injured during the event. And I couldn't be more proud of the entire workforce in the way that they responded and acted to the incident, and then safely shut down all of the operations as such. So we're currently now going through the efforts to analyse and assess the damage. We have said that it will take us something like 8 weeks for us to be able to return to operations, and that's still a fair assessment or estimate from us. And we've brought in many help from around the world, which is a strength of ExxonMobil's global organisation, to bring the resources in to be able to recover as quickly as possible.
There has been concerns raised on social media specifically, basically fear-mongers, stating that the earthquakes were caused by oil and gas companies, namely ExxonMobil, Oil Search. Can you basically address these concerns?
Yeah, so firstly, and very importantly, is that we understand the concerns and the fears within the community. There hasn't been an earthquake of this size in the generations that are up there. And so we certainly understand that the concerns that the community has. We also very much welcome in an independent study which the government, working with the Australian government, has been working on and has, I believe, either today or will be shortly releasing the results of. And so we very much welcome that. And a couple of points that I'd make, we're very confident of the results of that report, but a couple of things is that there are no fracking operations in Papua New Guinea. And so some of the stories associated with fracking, that technology is not used in the country here, and it's not required to be used in the operations that we have. And then importantly as well is that the depth of the earthquake itself, which was 20 plus kilometres beneath the Earth's surface, was well below any of the depth of the wells that we drill, which are typically 3 to 4 kilometres deep. But again, come back and we really understand the concerns people have and welcome that independent report.
Can you give us an update about the PNG LNG project? We haven't spoken to you for a while, so it'll be good to get an update from you.
Yeah, so we're really excited by the growth opportunities here. I think when you look back to what ExxonMobil did in country in 2017, we made a very significant purchase with the Interoil transaction, which really demonstrates the confidence that we as a company has in this great country that we have the opportunity to work in. And so that confidence and that investment is now starting to play out with some more definition and around the concepts of developments that we've got. And so working with the operator at Papua LNG, we've made really big, Total, make really big steps towards identifying the concepts for the development of Papua LNG. We've finished some early preliminary capacity studies for the LNG plant, and we're looking to double the capacity there with 3 additional LNG trains. We're now talking to the government and the co-venture partners associated with that. And the other big result that we've had late last year was when we drilled the PNG South 2 well. Those results are coming through. We're doing an independent certification, and it's looking very, very positive. And so we've got some real opportunities with some significant projects coming up here that we're really excited about.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think you've covered the main key points. I think it's a very tough time for the country at the moment with the earthquake, and that is certainly our number one focus at the moment, is to whatever help that we can give to the communities in conjunction with all the partners that are working up in the area, whether it's the government of Papua New Guinea and the Disaster Recovery Centre, whether it's our partners that we have in Oil Search and MRDC, the Australian government, the New Zealand government up there, all the aid agencies. We're really working as hard as we can to help everybody that we can, but it's going to be a long road to recovery. We recognise that, and we'll be doing what we can to help.
I'm Leanne Jorari in Kokopo, and you're watching Business PNG. So now we have Mr. Wapu Sonk, the Managing Director of Kumul Petroleum's Holdings. Can you give us an update about the extractive industries in Papua New Guinea right now and how the industry is?
Just apart from the earthquake that has hit the industry in PNG and the aftermath of that, the industry itself luckily has not been affected. The extractive industry, especially petroleum, has been very lucky to have escaped that earthquake. So we're fortunate in that sense. And the operators have come out very clearly saying the assets are in good shape. In a couple of weeks' time, they will start operations. So there's a lot of optimism and confidence in the industry at the moment. They've also come out making statements around the next projects. Total announcing that there will be 2 trains that they're looking at based on El Cantaloupe resource, 2.7 million tonne per annum trains, and Exxon using Pinyang and Muruk gas fields, and also the reserve upgrade that we've had from especially Heights. That will form the basis for 1 more train. So the state is set to start negotiations and start going to FID and FID. So there is a lot of optimism that has been reflected on the number of turnout we've had in the conference. The conference last year had 400 plus participants. I understand it has gone past 500 on the second one. So that's an indication of where we are at in terms of the extractive industry in PNG.
There has been concerns especially with the downturn of the economy, a drop in oil and gas prices. Can you basically reassure our audience about this?
Yeah, we've had oil price downturn since 2014, last quarter of 2014. It went sub $30 per barrel at the time, and it's now come back up to about mid $65 per barrel. LNG prices are also up, it's high as well. But we've heard today that oil price starting around May, it will hit 70 mark, and it will stay there for the rest of the balance of the year. But long-term view is around $60, $65 per barrel oil price. So we've turned a corner, and it's looking good, especially on the oil price side. But LNG is a different story. LNG prices are up now, but starting middle of this year onwards, it will start to come back down because of oversupply. So that's the LNG market story. But oil price, because our LNG is linked to oil price, that should help.
You mentioned the recent devastating earthquake. Now tell us what Kumul Petroleum's holdings has basically, how they've contributed or helped out with relief efforts.
Yeah, so we've assisted in two parts. Firstly, we've donated 50 million as announced by Chairman for Kumul Petroleum, Semoyawe. Donated 50 million to the government relief efforts. And secondly, we are inserting our staff into the relief, into the affected provinces to assess how we can help. There is relief efforts going on, supported by various countries and Allsets and Exxon, but we want to see how else we can help. So we have staff in the two provinces, especially South Highlands and Hela, looking at options of how we can help as well.
And that's all we had for this episode of Business PNG. For more information, or if you would simply like to view this episode again, visit EMTV online at the URL at the bottom of your screen, or to simply join the conversation, like our page on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter at the Twitter handle @BusinessPNG. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Leanne Jorari, and this was Business PNG.